manager. But there are some best moments in our lives, our best work, which, for example, if you take the case of poets, right, or if you take the case of painters, there was this poet called Ghalib, right? He, apart from that, if you compose a poem and somehow your poem gets deleted and you don't have a copy, there is no chance that you will be able to reproduce it exactly. It does not happen, because that is a pure moment of inspiration. Poetry is defined as spontaneous overflow of emotions recollected in tranquility. So when you reproduce it, the recollected in tranquility part will be absent, and there would only be a spontaneous overflow of some other emotion, not that emotion that created that poetry in the first place. Right? So this is the problem. Whenever you talk about a work of art, see, that happened 5,000 years ago. Is that relevant today? Have we experienced those moments when we created something, somehow it got deleted, and when we tried to create it again, we couldn't? Right? So that is, now from where does that inspiration come? According to the Bhagwat Geeta, that inspiration comes right from the heart, bottom of your soul. Completely unsullied, completely uncorrupted by the external world. Now that is something which is very difficult nowadays, to have a thought which is not corrupted. For example, when we talk about careers again, but let's complete the HR perspective first, because see, I am a trainer and I have been with students for the past 20 years. I have this obsession about speaking about careers, and an obsession to tell the students not to go after a degree, but fine, that would be for some another day. So this is what the Bhagavad Gita actually is. It's a handbook of instructions. We may find that very strange. It's a handbook of instructions which reinterprets the philosophy of the Vedas. Now we have to understand the background in which Bhagavad Gita was written or composed. It was a kind of a revival movement, first of all. Now when we say reinterpretation of the philosophy of the Vedas, what exactly are we talking about? What is the philosophy of the Vedas? Two very simple things. The cycle of karma, as we call it, death, life, death, life, death, life, fulfilling your duties, and then moksha. That is the only thing which many of us understand. That belief completely presented in a way where it was applicable to everybody. That is what the Bhagavad Gita actually is. The second thing says, this is the best part about Hindu philosophy, Indian philosophy. I should not say Hindu philosophy. That word is under a lot of attack. We'll talk about that some other time. I'll try to be politically correct. When we talk about Indian philosophy, the Indian philosophy part, there are a lot of differences. One of the basic differences, Indian philosophy not only tells us what to do, it also tells us how to do it. For example, when Krishna is talking about meditation in the Bhagavad Gita, he actually tells Arjuna how to sit, on what to sit, neither too high nor on the ground, right, with kusha grass covering your asana, and there are scientific reasons for that. But then, so it both explains what it both tells us what to do and gives us a procedure also, though we may not be able to follow it in the contemporary world. The third point, it tries to create a harmony between the inside of an individual and the external world. And the way it tries to create harmony, I'll give you a small instance. Suppose we buy a new mobile, one of the latest contraptions which we have, okay? We buy an iPhone, or we buy a new car. There is a joke, if you see a gentleman opening the door of a car for a lady, for his wife, at least one of them is new. Either the car or the wife. Anyway, so when we get a new contraption, We treat it with so much of care on the first day, right? Kahin scratch bhi nahi lagna chahiye. I remember when I had first bought a car, I was driving like this. Kahin lag raha to nahi hai, because I had I couldn't estimate ki what is the length of the car. The way we treat the same thing on the third day is completely different from the way we treat it on the first day usually. पहले दिन तो by God, धीरे से रखेंगे. चार्जर का पिन जब मोबाइल में डालते हैं तो पहले तो इतने कॉशन से देख के डालेंगे. 3-4 दिन बाद तो, और वो मोबाइल के आजू बाजू, I mean, if you observe, where you plug in the charger, there will be some scratches around that particular point. Okay, that is because when we are sleeping in the night, we really don't go to if the phone has become old. Now the point is, how much did the phone change in 7 days or 3 days? And how much did your attitude towards the phone change in those 3 days? And when the latest model iPhone comes, okay, what changed? The iPhone or you? That is the question. Anyway, there is a different Upanishad also, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where there is a conversation between the sage Yajnavalkya and one of his companions Maitreyi about the true nature of the soul. And that may be one of the toughest conversations ever to interpret. I mean, Sanskrit to leave it, even if you read it in English, it becomes very difficult, because that is the conversation which is the basis in Hindu philosophy about the nature of the soul. Anyway, so that's the third point, how to create a harmony between these two worlds which apparently are completely contradictory. Then, egoless activity in pursuit of an ideal. Suppose there is an idea in your head. Okay, there is a thought, there is an idea, or there is an objective. We'll come to the karma conundrum later, because the slok which sir just said, karmanya vadika raste ma phaleshu kadachan, that probably is the most misunderstood sloka of all time. Right? It has always, see, whenever you go to a shop, at times you will see that behind the cash counter there is a Gita ka sar, which I find a paradox in the first place. It should not be behind the cash counter. Okay? Now you read that and you'll suddenly get depressed. It starts with तुम्हारा क्या था जो तुमने पा लिया, तुम क्या लेके आए थे जो लेके जाओगे. At the end of it you think मैं ये कपड़े भी क्यों खरीद रहा हूँ. You out. So my advice to people, please don't display that, at least not near the cash counter. It might be very hazardous to business, you know, and business interests have to be taken care of. And when you say egoless activity, it means how to take the I out of everything. How to take the I out of everything and pursue one goal with everything that you have. How to do that is also described. Then the next, it's mentoring of Arjuna by Krishna, whom for today we will call him the counselor. Usually we should call him the philosopher, but today because it's pertaining to HR, we'll call him the counselor. And there is a basic message in the Bhagwat Geeta. There is a consistency of message. There is a consistent advice. Everything that Krishna tells Arjuna, right, be it about the soul, be it about disorders of the mind, and be it about plebeium, which is a state of, you know, napunsakta in Hindi, everything he says, he is trying to drive home only one point. And the point is this: get up and fight. The point is not sit and think. The point is get up and fight. This is the reason why many Western philosophers have given their opinion that the Gita, Bhagwat Gita, is a war-mongering document. It tells Arjuna, don't look at your brothers and don't look at your cousins and your teacher and just kill everybody. Right? But then there are a lot of justifications for that. This is the single reason why many Western philosophers say, though they have borrowed a lot from the Bhagwat Gita, of course, you will find that when you read a gentleman called Immanuel Kant, who probably is considered to be, he wrote a book which is considered to be the second toughest book to read. That book is called The Critique of Pure Reason. And Immanuel Kant was a German writer, okay, and in German the words are very long and the sentences are very long. Somebody tried to translate that poor gentleman's works into English, And he did that literally, which led to a strange situation where if you read Immanuel Kant in English, a sentence would start on page 2 and end on page 4. And by the time you are on page 4, you forget what was there in page 2. Now, if you try to compare his philosophy with what I just said, a unique inspiration which leads to creation of a work of art which you cannot duplicate. Immanuel Kant calls it notion of free will. It's the same thing. Whether that is a inspiration or a coincidence or plagiarism, well, we have our reservations on that. Unfortunately, this was written at a time when copyrights did not exist. So this is the basic message of the Bhagwat Gita. Please remember, the basic message is not sit and think. The basic message is get up and fight. And it tells us why to fight and how to fight. Get up and fight as in, get up and do your job. That's the idea. So now we will see a few parallels. Now see, when Sir said I became a CA at the age of 21, there was a simple reason for that. I had nothing else to do. No TV, right? अब शाम को 7:30 बजे टीवी देखना है तो आमची माती आमची माणसं, ठीक है? 9 बजे टीवी देखना है तो मिर्जा गालिब, 9:30 बजे सो जाओ. This was the world we lived in. There were no distractions. And somehow it was very easy at that point of time. Okay. Today, due to the advent of technology and internet, so much information is available. But unfortunately, the same cannot be said about the wisdom levels. Right? Because see, more information is not necessarily a good thing. I mean, you can call me anti-democratic, but more information, one of the possible results of more information is more confusion. Now, because today, when a student completes his 12th, he says, what to do? There are so many things to do. We had nothing to do. And we were doing BCom from GS College. Absolutely nothing to do. So that is the reason. If I would have had the distractions which people have today, with my personality, which should be very obvious by now, I am not sure I would have completed CA in even in 15 years. I am not sure. Right? So today, because of these distractions and the modern day complexities, there are a lot of problems which the employee faces which are the same as what Arjuna had done. So this is the first. Ability to excel in something but not allowed to do it. Ability to excel in something but not allowed to do it. This usually happens in a lot of lives. Usually. Before we move on, there are two important advisories I would need to give you. First of all characters are completely fictitious and bear no resemblance to anybody sitting here. Okay? I mean, the resemblance is your risk, not mine. We are just talking about some general concept. If unfortunately or fortunately you find your life here, I mean, please don't blame me. Right? All characters are completely fictitious. Second, views expressed here are not the views of the person expressing them. Anyway. So, ability to excel in something but not allowed to do it. And this is what Arjuna experienced. A great archer, but he had to wait a very long time to actually fight. A very long time. उनका बस चलता, उनका और भीम का, तो वो युद्ध तो बहुत पहले ही हो गया रहता. But because his elder brother was this ambassador of peace, right? He had to subdue what he was very good at for a very long time. Finally he got his release maybe during those 18 days after the goading of Bhagwan Shri Krishna. If you talk to any employee, see, that's the problem. To understand our employees, does this tip really help us? I've already said the problem with Bhagwat Gita is it goes into depths. Right? It does not attack the symptom. It attacks the cause. Right? There is this advice which a lot of wise people have given. if you have set your eyes on something, stand in front of a mirror in the morning and say, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it 20 times. I have never seen it work. I have never seen it work. In my entire career of maybe 15 to 17 years of teaching, I have never seen it work. What I have definitely seen is when a person sits to work, okay? Today the maximum attention span, concentration span is roughly 45 minutes, right? And it's going down even as we speak. It's impossible, I mean, unless you are too involved, 45 minutes is, the mind goes off on a short 2-minute tour. Okay, we are approaching 45 minutes. The mind goes on a tour. So, the point is, suppose there is an employee who is not willing to work. How many of us can really ask the question why? And then why? And then why? And then why? That is the issue. Money and salary may fascinate 90% of the employees for some time. It will not fascinate the remaining 10%. And maybe these are the 10% who could add a couple of zeros in your top line, if the direction is given. Anyway, so this is the first parallel. Second, gave up a love or something deserving for the cause of family, friends and society. Now, many employees face this. Okay, this happens during college years also. There is, in engineering, there is this big facade called final year project. If you have done your engineering, you will understand there is something called, sorry, I should not say it's a facade, but there is something called final year project where, you know, there are 5 people and 1 person works and 5 get certificates. Right? And there are regular events that are organized, even in corporates. Has it happened that, okay, don't answer that question, I'll just ask so that I can throw the question to you. The answer there's no need to express anything. Has it ever happened that you were in charge of the organizing committee of a particular event in your company? You did most of the work and the credit went to the team. I mean, again, I can guess from the smiles that it has happened, but we really need not go into the depth of that, okay? Now, at that point of time, we accept it, okay? Organization, organization, organization. It does leave an impression, unfortunately, okay? Either you elevate yourself to a status where you actually think that way, because see, in the modern times, we pay a lot of lip service to a lot of things. Okay. Anyway, so what happened with Arjuna? This is what happened with Arjuna. Worthy of being a king, but living in exile so that society sustains. Now, when we come to sustenance of society, there is a very crucial word that has been used in Indian philosophy called dharma. Today we use it to mean religion. Tumhara dharma kya hai? The idea is we are talking about religion. Okay. But if you look at the various Upanishads and the Bhagwat Geeta, the word dharma itself has been interpreted in many ways. You have a varna dharma, you have a ashrama dharma, you have a dharma which is basically, which means you have to, there are 3 debts which we have according to Indian philosophy. Okay, first is the Pitru Rin, the debt which we have towards our ancestors. The second is Rishi Rin, the debt we owe to our Guru. And the third is Dev Rin, because God is the primary cause for our existence. There is a certain loan. We are indebted to God. And living your life in such a way that these 3 loans are discharged is what dharma is. That is one interpretation. Where in modern times, well, we have added a 4th Rin also, which is called a bank Rin, for a housing loan or a vehicle loan. Today even mobile gadgets are available on loan. And today most of us live as if that is the only loan which needs to be fulfilled and forget the other 3, but that's a very different story. So because we are talking about sustenance of society, the Mahabharata and the Bhagwat Gita define dharma as that which sustains society. Any act which sustains society is dharma. Any act which goes against sustenance of society is adharma, not sin. The word pap is used as an analogy for the word sin, which is essentially a Christian concept. The word sin is not an Indian concept. In India, in Indian concept, there is a dharma and an adharma. Dharma is that which sustains society, that which sustains your organization. Suppose you fight. Why are these people getting the certificates? They did not do anything. I am the person who did everything. I should get the certificate. What kind of an impact will it have on an organization? Definitely not positive. Though you want to do it, you might get a dream where you are actually doing it, because dream is again wish fulfillment. But you can't do it. Why? So that the organization sustains. We don't want to upset the apple cart. Okay? It leaves a negative mental impression. It will come out sometime. 5 years later, 7 years later, when you actually have a fight with your boss before quitting the job, and you both are accusing each other of everything in the world, all these things will come up. Just like it came up before the Mahabharata war in the mind of Arjuna. He said everything. He said everything. We'll examine his neurotic condition as well. Then achieved something but had to share with others who were undeserving. The smiles are broadening, which means again something which has been experienced. Even Arjuna experienced this when, this is again a controversial point, when this happened. Right, now there are different interpretations again. Okay, I mean there is a lot of wool, okay, because see, we are treated as kids. If you talk about morality, okay, how does the Mahabharata start? It starts with an uncle wandering in the jungle, finding an auntie and proposing to her. That's how it starts. Okay, we are talking about King Shantanu and Ganga. How did they meet? King Shantanu was wandering in the jungle. Suddenly he saw a beautiful lady, and then that lady said, I'll marry you on only one condition. You will never ask me a question. We are like in the modern world, that's not new. We have never asked a question anyway. And what does that lady do? 7 children are born. She drowns them the same night, kills them the same night. And when she is going to kill the 8th one, the poor husband finally speaks. Kya keh rahi? And she says, Tu bola. Main gayi. That's what it is, right? Take away all the vocabulary. Morality. And then it gets better and better. It gets better and better as you progress, but we are not here for the Mahabharata. Anyway, now there are many interpretations regarding this particular act. At that point of time, there is a new version of the Mahabharata. Today it has become fashion, to take villains of our scriptures and do a 180-degree and make them the heroes. 2 novels have come up recently. One is a novel called Asura by Anand Nilkanthan, which is basically Ravanayana. It's not Ramayana. It starts with Ravana's story, etc., etc. And that book gives a logic that Ravana abducted Sita because Sita was Ravana's daughter. And he could not see her wandering in the jungle like this. तो बेटी के प्रति इतना प्रेम था कि उसने किडनैप कर लिया. ऐसा उसमें वर्जन है. Okay. Religion is something which we should not joke about. I want to live longer. Anyway, so there is that version, and then there is another version called Ajaya, which is a twist on the Mahabharata. The character is not Duryodhana, it's Suyodhana and Sushasana and so on and so forth. Apparently there were 2 people who were very angry with this decision. One was Arjuna himself, and the second, of course, was Draupadi. And Krishna again had to play peacemaker, and from that arose Arjuna's marriage to Subhadra, who was Krishna's sister. So there is a lot of stuff we need to think. Anyway, the next point, forced to be silent, because if you speak, someone might get upset. Oh, the number of times this happens in a modern organization. You think all these things are not leaving an impact on the mind? They do. They do. Just wait till the day you fight with your boss and all these things will, come back. And this is what happened with Arjuna. He never could give vent to his true nature. So basically, according to the Bhagwat Geeta, this is the reason why today man is not perfect. There is a me. See, all of us have a conception about ourselves. कि हम क्या हैं, हमारी personality क्या है, and all of us essentially want to be good. All of us essentially want to be good. But unfortunately, there are two things which come in between, pride and competition, which don't allow us to be good. So at times, a gap emerges between my perception of what I am. We are not talking about anybody else's perception. The Bhagavad Gita says your perception of what you are is the most important perception. You have lived with yourself for so many years, right? Who can be a better judge about what you are as a person? A psychologist? I really don't think so, but fine, not to offend any psychologist who may be sitting here. I do that a lot at home. So there comes a gap. Okay, this is the same gap which we are talking about. What I want to be and what I am forced to be. What I want to do and what I actually am doing. Okay, and this gap is the reason why man has fallen from perfection. This is the reason. We have this habit of treating career as a way to earn money. Right? The only way, see, there is no problem in treating a career like that as a way to earn money because, well, you will be in the top 40%, but not in the top 10%. Definitely not in the top 5. If one wants to reach the top 10 or top 5, a career does not remain as what we do to earn money. A career is a way of life. How many of us can think like that? A career is a way of life. I've never understood how people can have, the people who talk about your work life is different and your personal life is different. Is that increasing the harmony or decreasing the harmony? If you have a different work life and if you have a different personal life, work-life balance, you must have heard about this term, work-life balance. You know what's the best way to create it? Treat the two as the same. Then you don't need to create it, right? A lot of Western philosophy is just based on lies. For example, you must have heard about body language. There's a book on body language written by Julius Fast, which is considered to be a very popular book. He earned millions. You know what that book says? What is the foundation? You may want to lie, your body may not support you. Train your body to support you when you lie. अब उसमें कुछ चीजें हैं, जैसे अगर आप ऐसा बोलोगे तो झूठ बोल रहे हो. अगर eye contact नहीं है, इसका मतलब you don't believe in what you say. No, you are sitting in you are communicating. You think Julius Fast is going to help us? I don't think so. Simple solution, don't lie. Julius Fast has managed to create a multi-million, billion-dollar. Many of you will not agree with me. There's no problem. It's a democracy. You can voice your views, but today is my day. Anyway, so basically, multi-million, multi-billion-dollar empire created on the concept of lying. I find that unethical. I find it very unethical that a gentleman called Nick Leeson was arrested on the charges of fraud when he did a derivative scam in Japan, And a bank in England called Barings Bank, which was a 300-year-old bank, the accumulated losses was so much that the bank collapsed. It wiped out the bank.